Welcome to this presentation on self-inquiry. The context will be dialogue, and we are going to examine an interdisciplinary perspective. But before we do that, let us remember to have a beginner's mind. So take a pause and check in with yourself. Is your glass half empty, half full, somewhere in between? Or is it completely empty? Completely full? We can learn the same teaching now. The same teaching we've heard before in a week, a month, or even years later. But we understand it differently. This is what makes the ancient teachings come alive. But in order to do so, your glass must be empty. This is important. David Bohm saw inquiry as a creative process. So what does creativity require? An empty cup, a sense of rawness. It's not copy and paste. It's not I already know. So this means Bohm did not see inquiry and dialogue as a simple exchange of ideas, but rather a form of deep listening. So with this in mind, let's see how a Buddhist notion of inquiry connects here. We're going to listen to Dr. Judith Simmer Brown, a disciple of Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche.
Them and to be open to the diversity of perspectives and views that people may have. But the other part is inquiry. I think inquiry is radical and it brings enormous mutual transformation. Being curious about the world, asking questions, being open to growth and learning. And I see that I'm very fond of looking at the history of the curriculum of Nalanda University. And Rinpoche always said that when he founded Naropa, he wanted to bring Nalanda University type approach to the West. And that whole sense of developing inquiry, a genuine inquiry where we listen and learn from each other and suspend any judgments about perspectives that are different from our own, which includes a lot of interreligion them, and to be open to.
It includes interreligious dialogue, interspiritual dialogue, interdisciplinary dialogue. So if you want to hear more, you can do so on Chung Hung Institute's website, Audible, Spotify. But in the meantime, let's move forward. How does this connect? First of all, we see a suspension of thought. This doesn't mean you stop thinking, but the conditioned assumptions are on hold. So, rather than rushing to conclusions, we actually notice the automatic reactions or beliefs that arise. In a way, inquiry is like this. Thought, belief, reaction wants to arise. You notice, and you ask, what is truer than that? You self-investigate. In this way, rather than following thought after thought, balloon after balloon, cloud after cloud, we begin to experience what Bohm emphasized, which is wholeness rather than fragmentation. So let's take a look now through the modern lens of psychotherapy.
Kind of the broadest view, a lot of the work is being able to be with everything that we are actually carrying without the splits, without the judgments, without the separation. Kind of the broadest view, a lot of the work is being able.
Uri Talmor just emphasized what it means to be in dialogue with ourselves and with others. So, how do we truly let go of the splits, let go of fragmentation? How do we listen? Deeply, completely. What if we take a moment to pause and inquire? What if everyone is doing the best they can with what they know, including you? Let's shift our attention to Isaac's text on dialogue, whereby we see how inquiry is very simple. It's a willingness to deeply question, a willingness to explore different perspectives. Very, very similar to what Dr. Judith Zimmer Brown said earlier. Do you remember? Can we pay attention on purpose? How can we create meaning and a shared exploration rather than trying to persuade an idea? So rather than persuasion, rather than argumentation, we co-create meaning. Let's explore further.
You don't have to do this for 30 years, and you don't have to go on long retreats. All you have to do is sit there and be honest with yourself. You and I know that's one of the major reasons people give up meditation, because they don't like meeting themselves at all. So I'm going to broaden that and say it's more human than Western. We have a tendency to attack as a method of not having to look at ourselves. We have a capacity to do self-attack also when we don't like what we see. It takes a lot of strength to watch those attacks and not get caught up in them. And you know that as well as I do. So I think this is more universal than Western in my thinking. When you practice that attack and self-attack, that becomes a habit. And the difficulty of forgiveness is unwinding that habit of saying, yeah, this is a habit, but you don't need that habit. And you want to practice other things to create different habits. And that's straight from Buddhist thinking. It's like you want to create habits that will do you more good than this habit. That's a general orientation to forgiveness, is to notice it as an arising of your mind, that it becomes a habit. By paying attention, you can choose to change that habit, but you have to create new habits. It doesn't just go away on its own. You don't have to do this.
So far, we heard from a psychologist, a Buddhist, and a psychotherapist. Outside of what we have learned in class. This was Dr. Fred Luskin. He is a forgiveness researcher. He founded the Forgiveness Project at Stanford University. Before we move forward, what habits are you willing to change for the sake of what is on the other side, for the sake of a deeper connection? Krishnamurti, he had a view which emphasized seeing without fragmenting. Can you face your reality purely Can you be calm enough to see the mind as it is, to see the chaos of the mind in order to transform it, in order to really listen?
But I have found that you can't be honest with yourself without having some guidance in calming down. And then the calming down gives people an opportunity to see alternatives. So who are when you're pissed, and who are you when you're calm? Forgiveness comes from the who are you when you're calm. It never can come from the who are you when you're pissed. So that is a central early distinction that we make, that you want to learn that you have other voices, other ways of being that are not just your reactive emotions. That's as far as we go. But it gives people a choice, and it gives people some entree into the part of themselves that's not cooked into what you might call like clinging or avoidance. Just like you have a place in you that's not caught. And the caught place of you creates grievances. The freer place in you releases them. So we try to keep it really simple.
Yeah. Powerful. Very similar to Krishnamurti. Now I'm going to ask you, take a moment to pause the recording, and ask yourself, where are you stuck? Now ask yourself, what does it take to be free? Free from the conditioning, from all these dimensions that you created. Krishnamurti's approach suggests that true inquiry involves a dissolving of barriers between self and others. We see this align with David Bohm. Bohm's vision of dialogue was a means to reach wholeness. What are some of the ways you, we, I can dissolve this? When it comes to dialogue, let's now listen to a perspective by psychotherapist and musician, currently in Spain, Valentina Moyano.
So I would say, if you start by using your sounding voice with no like intellectual brain thinking that you have to say something that is smart, or because people sometimes they don't want to speak because they think that they're not going to say something smart, and they keep quiet. But if you start sounding which has no intellectual anything, and you say like ah, and you give an ah that is also like a singing from the heart, and it's expression, expansion thing. So I would say, if you start by using your sounding voice with
Let
no
go. Relax.
like intellectual brain.
Inquiry takes so many forms. So which form will you choose? What dialogue will you get into so that perhaps we can listen better, we can communicate better, and we can be in harmony? How can you, I, or we, all of us, listen and communicate better? Inquiring together through dialogue, it's a journey of collective transformation. It's mindfulness in action. As we have seen, it calls us to suspend our habitual thoughts, to listen with our whole being, and attend to the subtle signs within us, around us. May we each gradually shift from fragmentation toward wholeness. Thank you.